There we go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll go back to my screen share. And I just thought this was funny. 1 minute into continuing education for license renewal. You're boring me to death and I'm already dead. So we've all felt it. We've all felt it. All right. So hello, everybody. And yay, it's May. Let's just zip through this meeting. See if I know how to change slides. I'm clicking and nothing's happening. Ah, there we go. So Washington numbers from the RMLS. You know that this graphic is always available for you to share. It's available for Washington and for Oregon. I only pulled the Washington, but it gives you some clean, easy numbers to share in social media and with your database. And the numbers to me are kind of meaningless if you don't have a context, because 579 closed sales. Well, is that good or is that bad? What is it usually? I don't know.
That's low.
And
yeah.
so that's why this is a great kind of, I like to share things that don't give people the whole story and say, hey, call me or ask me. If you want to know what this means, ask me. That's why I share like the abbreviated agent version of the MLS at my open houses. Nobody can figure out what that says. I'm like, oh no, yeah, you're going to have to ask me about that. Let me demonstrate my expertise and knowledge to you by explaining this. So to get the skinny on these numbers, you always just have the market action report right at your fingertips, and it gives you what those numbers mean. So those closed sales, I said, I don't know what that number means. Well, it's down 1.5%. which in the world of money, 1.5% is pretty much static. I mean, 1.5% is pretty much same as it was, but that is from last month. If you go down, and I'm pointing at my screen, like you guys are seeing my finger, and I know you're not. So it's this area is the residential trends. Hold on. Share. Let me share again. And I'm not going to touch it. Damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, I took my chewies.
The baby's chewies.
To give the babies their chewies.
Did they eat it?
They did.
What? Like back and fit, I guess.
Okay, so here is the market action report. I think I'm sharing the correct screen now. And on the right-hand side, I'm not going to touch it, but it says residential trends. And the first numbers are month over month. So April versus March. And below that is the year over year. So when I say, okay, there were, what was the number for closed sales? 466 closed sales. Well, that's pretty static month over month, 1.5% decrease. But go down to April 2023 versus April 2022, it's down 42%. So that's kind of big. That's big news. That's the headline. The difference between the market action report and the graphic we just saw is that the graphic is going to today's date, which is the middle of May, and the market action report is for a month over month. So on May, the first week of May, the market action report comes out for April. So these numbers are a little bit behind the graphic. But I'm telling you, when you are, people are always asking me, I don't know how to answer questions. When people ask me, how's the market? This is it. This is your cheat sheet. Page 2, market action report. Print it out, fold it up, put it in your purse, take a picture of it, have it in your phone. People ask you, how's the market? That's your, there are your numbers. You never have to fumble again. Just my little quick dip into RMLS while we were here. And our brokerage numbers for RMLS, we are number 27 year to date for the end of April. Number 27 out of 240 brokerages. That puts us in the top 11% of sales for Clark County. So I am very proud of that number and appreciate everybody who helps us get there.
Mhm.
And I love looking at this list because everybody above us is big. And look at us, we're just little old us. The only other ones on here that are relatively small would be Parker Brennan at number 20. And everybody else has a big corporate backing behind them.
Mhm.
So yay team, look at us.
Ooh, premier property, low dollars. Yeah.
And then while we're in RMLS, this little fun fact kind of poked me in the eye because we have not been following this rule, and it is a rule and we need to be enforcing it. Do you know that when you get a listing signed, you are supposed to have it loaded into MLS within 24 hours of the last signature?
Mhm.
So something to think about for compliance. And this is for Washington and Oregon. If we were to get audited and they want to see the listing agreement and they look at the listing agreement, because if they audit us, they're going to ask for the listing agreement. They're going to ask for the MLS printout. The things that I require you to put in SkySlope are things that they will ask me for in an audit. I only want what's required. So I'm not asking you for any extra stuff. That's why extra stuff is optional. But the stuff they're going to want to look at, they're going to compare, they're going to say, let's see the listing agreement, let's see the MLS listing. And if you got the listing agreement signed in February and you went live in April, and that's when you put it in, that is technically not a valid listing. So what do you do?
So
If
I
you
have
have a client who wants to sign their listing agreement, they want to commit, but they don't know when they want to go live. Get it signed around before you go live in MLS. Have the change the date and initial. That's it. Just so that that contract, they don't have to re-sign the whole thing, just make it current. Or use an
Current.
addendum, use an MLS addendum that says listing date effective and put the date that you're going live.
Mhm.
Somebody had a question and I overtalked them, so jump in if that was you. Or I might have answered it when I kept talking.
I have a question, Angela, for the reason for that is, are they trying to prevent pocket listings where you already, like, you're not exposing it to the market, or what's the reason behind that?
I don't know, because pocket listings are allowed and having a listing and putting it in as a coming soon is allowed. So I don't know what the reason is other than just to have clean contracts. I mean, is my only guess, so that people, and I know at least 3 of us that I can think of off the top of my head who are on this call right now have been in this situation where we go on a listing appointment, we get the listing, we ask, are you working with any other agents? They say no, but then it turns out, oh yeah, they had signed a listing agreement like last year, and then they changed their mind and never went live.
Oh,
So I don't want that listing agreement to be impeding with my ability to take a listing with them now. So I think that this might help with that, but I'm not a lawyer. That's just me
mhm.
speculating. But I know that has happened to a couple of us where the client swears up and down they haven't worked with anybody else. And then we go live and we get the broker demand from Keller Williams in email saying, hey, this was my listing and you poached it. And here's my signed around listing contract from a year ago.
Oh, no, that's bad.
So yeah, people sign things and they can't last forever. They can't last forever. So if they sign a listing agreement and they never go live, I like the fact that that listing agreement becomes void.
Yeah, that's a
So-
statute of limitations if it's over
Yeah.
24 hours, basically, right?
So it makes sense. All right, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat. Yes, it was a good question. Okay, so as soon as I click my screen, it's going to go to the next one. So that's just an MLS reminder that I kind of wasn't paying attention to until it popped up in my face and I thought I would share it. And then, of course, everybody knows the rules on the Washington side of the law. Signed around contracts need to be submitted to the brokerage within 2 days, 48 hours. You cannot just walk around with a signed contract and not submit it to the brokerage. That is the one that they dinged us. They dinged us on 2 things with our last audit, and that was a big one because a lot of people just kind of, oh, I'll get it in SkySlope when I get it in SkySlope. So if that's you, And getting it in Sky Slope is a little bit of a hardship. Like I can't do it same day. I can't do it next way. There is a solution. Just have all of the emails with the contract copied to admin@cnwrealestate.com. That email address is in the MLS in your listing as the firm document email address. And that means if the firm receives it there, then we have received it. We still need it in Sky Slope for compliance and for auditing. But technically, if they were to pull that file to audit and they're like, hey, this didn't get into Sky Slope for 4 days, but I can pull your email log and say, yes, but she submitted it the day it was signed around, I was copied on it, then we're good. That counts. And also, having just come out of the Annie Fitzsimmons 2-day extravaganza, can we flip back to that slide about you're boring me to death and I'm already dead? There were periods of that during that 16 hours, but for the most part, it was very good information. And she issued this reminder, which I know I've talked about before, but we don't always remember. It's not considered delivered officially unless you sent it to the firm email address. So when you're writing an offer on something and sending it to another brokerage, you're supposed to copy their document email address, which is in the MLS in the listing. And so what does that matter? It does, so it's considered delivered if the agent responds and says, I got it, or if you included the document address. So that way, even if the agent doesn't respond, you still have delivery. That is considered legal delivery because it went to the firm address. And so how does that come into play? It comes into play with an agent saying, oh, shoot, we had already accepted another offer by the time I saw yours. I didn't get it till 10 p.m. Well, if I got my email showing that I sent it to their firm at 2 p.m., that excuse doesn't hold water. And if he says, well, I didn't see it till 10 p.m., it doesn't matter. Now, if I'm only waiting, if my only validation is for that agent to say, I got it, then that excuse is fine. He can say, yep, you said it at 2, but I didn't check my email till 10. Sorry, we took another offer. But if I had copied the firm on it, then I now have an argument. Anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, I just real quick, I was wondering if I send something for DigiSign through SkySlope and it's returned back signed, does that count if we get audited as the 24-hour period, or do I have to actually assign it to that checklist item in SkySlope?
I think that counts. You know what? I'll have to go into SkySlope and check, because if I have access to see what's in your DigiSign, then it counts. But if I don't, then it doesn't. And some things in SkySlope, like I can go in and look at your stuff, and some things I can't. And I don't know which one DigiSign is. So if it's
Okay.
available to whoever's auditing files to be able to pull it and show it, then it would count. But if it's not, so I'll check that. I'm going to write myself a note right now to check SkySlope and see how that works.
Okay, thanks, Shanna.
Yeah, because that's a good point. Because that is in our system. So can I see when your docs are DigiSigned? Okay. And so there's that. And a lot of times we'll have the other side like receiving a copy when it's all signed around. So again, unless you're including the firm address, it's not considered delivered until the other agent confirms delivery. So if you want to avoid that, because there are a lot of agents who don't confirm delivery, just copy their document address on it.
I know, dumb question, here it comes. The admin address again is admin@cascadia.com or?
admin@cnwrealestate.com.
Okay.
It's Carly's email
CNW.
address.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, now let's see if I can go to the next slide. Apparently I cannot. All right, wait, I've got the blue spinny wheel, so that means something.
So while the blue wheel is spinning, that's another reason why it's probably a good idea to call and leave a message or text message to listing agent. Hey, I just sent you an offer.
Yeah, even better to do it in a text so that you have a little screenshot to show, nope, I sent it to you and I told you I sent it to you.
I always send it just like when I send an offer over, I send it to our admin, theirs.
And theirs, yep.
Yeah.
That's what you're
and
supposed to do. Technically, that is what we're all supposed to be doing. And a lot of people don't. There's the next slide. Okay, so forms and rules are changing twice. There's a change coming up this summer, and I don't remember if it's in June or July. And then there's a change coming in January 2024. None of it is available yet to look at, but when it is, this is where you'll find it on the Washington Realtors website.
Not possibly coming from the air vent?
And so I made notes of like the big ones that struck me during the conversation about the changes that are coming. Form 41 will be a mandatory form in Washington, which is your buyer's agency agreement. That will now be, and I don't think that happens till January, but that's going to become a required form. Up until now, it has been up to you to decide if you were going to use a buyer's agency agreement or not. And a lot of people were using the one that we have in-house, which is like a standard buyer's agency agreement. So starting in, I believe it's January 2024, it'll be a requirement to have that form and a suggestion to make it their form instead of ours. The other thing that's not a change, but it was a big topic of discussion, is the FERPTA form. Should be, it's not required yet, but it should be included in every transaction. And the FERPTA form is a protection for your buyer. So if the listing agent is not providing FERPTA, you should ask for it. And the change, that's just one little checkbox that I'm so excited about. On Form 21, it's not going to matter anymore if they tell you they're going to send their earnest money by check or by wire. Doesn't matter as long as they send it. I'm very happy for that one because that is stupid. And it was something that we did get dinged for on our last audit, that the buyer's agent said they were going to wire it, but they delivered a check. And so we have to get an addendum saying everybody's okay that it was a check instead of a wire. That's going away. So very happy about that. Just like last year, the big one that went away that was so exciting was that you didn't have to get an addendum anymore if the earnest money was deposited late. It's like, as long as it was deposited and you kept going, it was okay. So this is along that same line. These are things that Washington State included in their contracts that Annie Fitzsimmons has deemed are not really issues of law. So Washington State Board of Realtors or whoever designs the forms is saying, if you don't do this and if you don't do that, your contract is invalid. And the lawyer is saying, nope, that's not true. For contract law, that's not true. So let's make our forms catch up with what's really accurate for law. So those changes are coming. We will have some classes about that when they roll out, but just so that it's on your radar that changes are coming, some this summer, some next year. Anybody have questions about that before I dive into a form on the next screen? Okay, this is the form 41A that I was just talking about. This is the one that will become required. You will be required to have your buyer sign this with you disclosing in section 5 what your commission is going to be. And if you're doing, let's just say, I don't know, as a hypothetical, a transaction with Lennar, and they're offering you 1% commission, are you happy to just do it for 1% as a buyer's agent? If so, then you would put 1% here. If you are like, I'm not doing it for less than 2.25, then you would put 2.25 here, knowing that there will be a discussion coming up about who's paying the extra part. Once you have this signed, it is then okay for you to first attempt to collect the difference from the seller. So Lennar's offering 1%. Your buyer signed an agreement saying they are willing for it to be 2, and if they have to eat it, they'll eat it. But first, try to get it from the seller. I can tell you with Lennar, they'll just say no, and then try to poach your client, but that's another story. So this is going to be required. A lot of people don't like using the buyer service agreement. I'm sorry, but it will be required. And Annie Fitzsimmons has made a whole series of videos about this form and an interview series of her talking to agents about how best to present this form and how to discuss it with your buyers. So there is a lot of information out there about how to get your buyer service agreement signed around. And then just a quick deep dive. Well, there were 2 things, but we'll only go into one. Okay. On the form 22A, which we all use if our client's not paying cash, section 2, financing contingency. People ask me all the time, is it A or is it B? So if you check nothing, it defaults to A. And if you don't write anything in the blank on line 27, it defaults to 21 days. What is it defaulting to? What is this saying? This is saying that 21 days or longer after mutual acceptance, the seller can issue a 22AR and have the buyer waive their financing contingency. This is already there. Whether you check it or not, it is there. The seller has that right. Unless you wrote in on line 27, something like 30 days or 45 days or whatever. But most of us, I've never seen anybody in this brokerage write anything there. We always leave it at the default. So even if you don't check it and fill it out, you're agreeing to it. It's part of the contract. It's a default. After 3 weeks in escrow, the buyer can no longer rely on their financing contingency as an out if the seller issues the 22AR. And the other half of the screen is the 22AR. Annie Fitzsimmons' suggestion to all listing agents is that every listing agent should be issuing the 22AR on day 22. Why? What does this do? It takes away the ability of the buyer to back out in that last 8 days of a 30-day close. If it's a tricky transaction and there's been a lot of back and forth and a lot of extensions, and both parties, including the seller, understand that there are some issues on the buyer side and they're trying to work it out, then you don't want to pull this. But on a normal transaction with a competent lender, and Angela, you can tell me if I'm wrong, after 21 days, unless the buyer does something extremely dumb, we should be 99% solid at this point, shouldn't we?
I would concur. At 21 days, you should know if it's a go or not. They should have done their due diligence.
Never 100%, but I'm like a good
Yeah.
95% sure at day 22, we should know, right?
A competent lender should have performed all the due diligence. The title report should come back. all
Man,
those-
that's really scary though, because some lenders are not competent. And I've been in a situation where I didn't know until the day before closing that this lender was.
Exactly. And as the buyer's
Yeah.
agent, that's super scary. As the seller's agent, that's not my problem. So as the listing agent, this is something you should be doing to protect your seller from those sketchy lenders on the buy side.
Is Betsy on this call? I don't have
No.
my. So
No.
she's a prime example of where she was representing, is it Hattie? And was it the guy from Amaro's Table? The dad was doing the loan
Oh,
and
yeah.
miscalculated her income. So usually things will come down because somebody thinks that they calculate income correctly. And if they're self-employed, if they haven't filed their taxes, if no one's reviewed their taxes, that's usually where you're gonna get burned. So I
Yeah.
don't know if
That
it's. this
happened with you and
department.
I with Rachel Mueller, Angela, remember?
Yeah,
We were like, uh-oh, and she needed a lot more cash to close, but luckily we hadn't signed anything that she would lose her earnest money if she, like, what if, in that instance, if she hadn't been able to come up with the extra money and we had to lose the deal, like, how would the agent excuse the fact that they had lost their earnest money? Would you say, well,
Well,
you
the
weren't really
agent
forthright
isn't
with your,
responsible. Yeah, the agent's not responsible for the earnest money. The client should be upset with her lender if the lender hasn't been competent up to this point. And I don't want anybody to lose their earnest money. I mean, I've seen people that definitely should have lost their earnest money get it back. I'm not advocating for that. But what I'm saying is this contingency is already there. If you're using a 22A, this contingency exists. It is there, whether you've checked it or not. The option you have is if you check seller's notice to perform, that means after 21 days, the seller sends the 22AR. If you check automatic waiver, it means they don't have to send the AR. But either way, that is done. Like
and typically speaking, the buyer, they would have had to have done something really dumb those last 8 days, like buy a car or something. So it is on them and they should lose their earnest money.
Exactly. And so if
And
you look
maybe-
at the 22AR, this is the seller's notice to perform. And the seller issues this, and it says, you either waive your financing contingency for this last week when we all should be solid, or we terminate the deal. So if you're worried about your earnest money, then terminate the deal and get it back.
okay, so that's the answer. So at that
That's
point,
the
she could
answer.
double
Yeah.
check all the figures that she had given to Angela about her self-employment, make sure that's all gravy before signing anything.
Have a
And then
heart to heart with
the
the
other-
lender and say, I'm about to risk $5,000. Can you give me any guarantees? But
Okay.
that is the seller's notice to perform. And so, like I said, the seller could have issued her that, Maggie, even though the box isn't checked on the 22A, because the default is. it
Oh, yeah, I
exists.
understand that,
Yeah. So.
definitely.
So what Annie's point was that as seller agents, we should be issuing these. Okay, so. If
Agreed,
we
yeah.
issue this and the buyer waives their financing contingency and then things go south, the seller still has the right to be reasonable and say, you know what? That was really out of the blue, unforeseen. I don't want their earnest money. I mean, this is just a protection. It's not a written in stone that once this is signed, earnest money is now available. Does that make sense? Like it's a protection, but the seller doesn't have to enforce it. They can issue it and then not enforce it. So does anybody have questions about that? I know it's a little complicated. At the Annie Fitzsimmons class, there was one agent there who does a lot of listings, Leah Higgins, who is a super sweetheart of a human and a good agent. And she's not in the business of trying to scam anybody out of their earnest money. And she does a lot of listings and she always uses the 22AR. And she said every time, well, 99% of the time when she sends it, the buyer's agent has a fit. Because buyer's agents aren't expecting it and they're not used to receiving it and they take it as a threat. And what Annie was saying is like, this is not a threat. This should be a part of the normal course of the transaction. By the time I have taken my house off the market, had it pending for 3 weeks, packed my stuff and started moving, you need to be ready to put up or shut up. And I don't think that's unfair. So if you're doing listings, think about how you might want to incorporate this in the future. And if you're a buyer's agent, be aware it's there. You can't make it go away by checking a box on the 22A. The seller has that right.
As
And
a
if-
listing agent, could you soften the blow by just when you accept an offer, alerting the buyer's agent that you will be sending the 22?
Yep, you could put it on your timeline.
That's
or
what I was gonna say.
If you ever use Carly as a TC, she creates a timeline and sends it out. You would put that on the timeline, 22 AR to be issued, and put the date. It's like it's right there in front and center. Go ahead, Erica.
Just question like the appraisal. What happens if appraisal doesn't come in that amount of time? Because I've had them to where it's like gets to be last minute. And that's out of our hands.
Let me read it and see if it really addresses appraisal. Oh, shit. Because I think that it specifically says, hold on.
Because you know how you do will or will not, yeah, whatever.
Right, there's the will or will not waive appraisal, and you would always want to not waive appraisal,
Right.
but I gotta get back to the screen now.
Agents that don't do, well, I have never done the 22 AR, but I always ask to do a walkthrough when I'm on the buyer's agent side. And most agents aren't used to that either. And they think of it as a threat or insulting too.
Yeah,
It's just
and-
not common practice. So
Yeah,
it
it's
does,
not, but it's there, you have the right, I mean, it's there, you're not waiving it, so it's like more people just need to be educated about what the forms mean and what contingencies exist, whether you know it or not, like the final walkthrough, same exact thing. You've got the right to do the final walkthrough, and many listing agents get pissy about it. And the same thing is happening with this form. So that's why we're having this discussion, because I don't want us to be the people that are having the outraged reaction to something that is absolutely should be the normal course of business. Okay, so
And as you should do a final walkthrough, because after furniture gets moved and you have couches and things moved, I found a floor that needed to be some replacements done after that. And it's like, if you didn't do final walkthrough, then you wouldn't have known about it.
And on line 35 and 36, Erica, it protects the appraisal. You still have the appraisal contingency.
Okay, perfect. Then that's good.
And then the automatic waiver of financing contingency basically just says that as of day 22, this exists, whether they send the 22 AR or not. The 22 AR is giving the buyer like 3 days to make a decision. And the automatic waiver of financing basically just says they won't have the 3 days. Like it'll just automatically be waived on day 22. Does that make sense? So like, and Amanda Bennett, when things were super hot and heavy and super competitive, she was checking that automatic waiver of financing as a way to sweeten her offers. Saying, after 3 weeks, we're solid. Now, what is she doing with the lender? On day 19 and 20, she's making damn sure that her client is solid, because you still got the right to change this, to issue a notice or an extension before that, day 21. So that's what the waiver does. It does not change the seller's rights at all. It just says that you automatically already understand that this form exists and you're agreeing to it. Does anybody have any questions about this? I mean, I know it's something to process of how you want to use it. And for most of us, because, we have a lot of buyer's agents, a lot of people working with buyers with less listings, it's more about how to receive it and how to prepare your client for it. And this should be part of your discussion when you're explaining what the financing addendum means. Like, this is our Form 22A. This means that the seller understands you're getting a mortgage, and if for some reason your financing fails, your earnest money is protected for the first 3 weeks. Like, whatever that conversation is that you're having, you need to incorporate that language into it so that you don't have a buyer who thinks the day before closing, they can get their earnest money back because they bought a new truck. All right, a couple of upcoming events. Tabitha is hosting a happy hour at the Washougal office today at 3:30. Are you still on the call, Tab?
I am still here.
Who is coming from Cascade Title?
I believe it is Dolly and then Eric Zimmerman, and I don't remember who else is going to be here. But we're
I know
talking
probate, yes. So talking about probate and what that means on the realtor side when something is in probate and how that affects title. So you can get a little adult beverage and a snack and learn a little bit about how that all works. So that is happening today. Save the date. We've got a 2-part class coming up on the 24th and the 31st. So that is next Wednesday is the first class. It's noon, 10 to noon, and it's how to use Boomtown. You have Boomtown. I don't care if you use it or not. It's there. Some people have their own CRM. Some people have their own websites. They don't want to use Boomtown. That's fine. This class is not for you. It is not required, and it's not required that you use Boomtown. But if you don't have your own CRM and you want to learn more about using a CRM, this is the place to be. So it's 4 hours. It's consecutive. So you have to come to the first 2 if you want to go to the second 2. Like, you're going to learn stuff on the 24th and build on it on the 31st. So it's not like 2 separate classes. It's continuous class for 2 weeks. And Boomtown is a very robust CRM that you can set up drip campaigns and searches for your clients. And like I said, if it's not your bag, you're not interested, then that is absolutely fine by me. But it's a tool that we have as a brokerage. It is there for you to use. So if that's something that you want to learn more about, this is the class. If it's something you want to learn more about and you don't want to take a class, log into Boomtown. There's a million tutorial videos on how to do it. But it is a tool that is there for you to use. And here's the May calendar. I think everybody knows where to find it. You can always find the May calendar in the Think Tank Facebook group. It's always the picture of the group, the top. What do you call that picture on the top? It's not your profile picture, but whatever the other thing is, the cover photo. So it's always there. All you have to do is click on it and you'll get the schedule of what's going on. The 19th.
Do you want me to share what I think would be a good mastermind for Uptown?
Yes, we need a topic. And I am going to be here. It was browned out because I was going to be out of town, but I canceled that trip.
Yay. So has anybody heard people, they don't want to move because they have a 2.75 or 3% interest rate, so they don't want to move and buy something at 6?
Yep.
We're at record high credit card and debt loads for borrowers now, but they also have a ton of equity. So I was going to share with everybody how to relate to people that they may have a 2.99% mortgage rate, but what's the effective rate with all their debts, and how they can parlay from their current mortgage into a new house that they actually now want because they've outgrown their house or they want something new, and they can actually be saving money per month on a different, inclusive effective rate, not just their mortgage rate.
Okay, that's a good idea. And I need to learn how to have that conversation. Yeah. I'll be there.
You don't have to know
This is
everything
my
about it, just
RSVP.
conversation.
Because that is a
I'm
good
not
idea.
able because I'll be at the Washougal office, but I would love notes on the topic.
I'll FaceTime
That
you
works.
in. And then on the calendar, you'll see the food project pickup. The Uptown office is located in the Arnada neighborhood, and the Arnada neighborhood picks up, they call it green bags. So they give me these green grocery bags to fill. So they are always collecting food for the food bank. So anytime you do a pantry clean out or you're shopping and it's like, oh, this is like buy one, get one free, and I only need one. Grab the other one, bring it to the office, throw it in the white bin by the front door. It's a continuous cycle. They pick up every month. So that is our collection there. Taco Tuesday is always the last Tuesday of the month, and that's at Evergreen. Angela, do we know what the
We're
class
gonna
is?
what the topic, it's gonna be somebody, I think it's Breath and Bone, and they're gonna talk about videos and this, how to create good content, and it'll be a good one, because videos are where it's at.
Yeah. And then reminder, every Tuesday at 11, you've got a nationwide coaching call that you are welcome to hop in on. I always post what the topics are in the think tank, and I send them out in the weekly reminder newsletter, which I didn't do this week. But this week's was social media, and I did post it in the think tank. So it's always a different topic, and it's just a big mastermind slash, it's not a mastermind because it is a coaching call. They have an expert and a topic, but that's every Tuesday at 11.
Real
that is-
quick on the food pickup. If you are on the east side of town, you can drop off at the Washougal office and I will make sure it gets where it needs to be.
Yes, I will come and get it, or you'll bring it when you're heading this way, but yes, we will take it. The food bank is always so understocked that they are so appreciative of anything we can bring in. And our next third Thursday is June 15th. So that is everything that I had. Does anybody have any particular buyer needs you need to share, or a listing that you need help with? Haves and wants. All right.
That's my want, more listings.
More listing. Okay, I would like more listings too.
Mhm.
Also, it's been posted in the think tank, but we have agents that are actively working with clients that were gained by walk-in traffic at the Washougal office and at the Ridgefield office. So if you are looking for a free way to connect with more people, floor time might be the ticket. So the floor time schedule is available for you to check out and throw yourself in at any time. All right, that's it for me. So unless anybody else has anything to add, I think we're done. All right, bye, everybody.